Welcome to Wellness Made Easy with Wendy and Kirsten.
Hi, I'm Wendy. After I graduated with my master's in wellness management, I started my own company, T2 Coaching, Health, Fitness, and Sport.
And I'm Kirsten, an athlete, vegan, life coach, and girl mom, running a business focused on helping others create a life they love.
We are here to explore all things wellness to help you become the person you've always wanted to be.
So if that's why you're here, open your ears and your mind as we tackle the world of wellness together.
Hi, friends. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, Kirsten. Hi, everyone.
Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm good. It's a good day. The sun came out. We've had some really heavy, steady rain for 3 days.
Oh.
And the sun's coming out, so we'll have a day of sunshine, and then it's going to rain again. We're getting a lot of rain. I wish it was snow.
I'll trade you. Well, we didn't get a lot of snow. We're getting flurries, but when I woke up, it was 1 degree.
That's cold.
So we're getting a little bit of a cold spell, but it's just like a little bit, like a tiny bit of snow, like a dusting each day. So no crazy snow. I think in the mountains it's snowing, which is good.
Yeah.
So how was your week?
It was good.
Good. Wellness win?
My wellness win. So I had to think about this one. And I came up with, because it really made me feel good and excited, even though I kind of had my swim stroke ripped apart. I was on the Tower 26 YouTube channel podcast where they analyzed my stroke. So I've been listening to Tower 26 since 2020, and I kind of started from their first podcast. It's a mostly swimming related podcast, and their philosophies and stroke technique is very similar to mine. So I was getting a lot of ideas, and I just really enjoyed the podcast. And lately, the last month or so, I kind of got away from it, and then I started listening to it again, and they were asking for you to submit a swim video. So I'm like, sure, why not? Let's see what happens. And I didn't really have anything current, so I sent them some old videos from 2008, and then I tried to get some current videos. Some of my kids videoed me right before practice. So I got some videos together because they kept emailing me, asking me, oh, well, we want to see you at this angle. We want to see you at this angle, because they usually just say a 10-second video of you swimming into the wall,
Right.
So anyways, they finally did an analysis on me, and they pointed out my flaws, which to me, I don't have any flaws.
Well, yeah, because you're a great swimmer.
Because I'm a great swimmer, and everything they said, I wasn't surprised because I know how they teach, and I know what's up. But it was interesting. It was just interesting to be on YouTube, and they're very well known. And so I just kind of felt like, even though they didn't totally rip my stroke apart, I mean, they had a lot of positive things to say about it. I don't care. Like, it was just awesome for me to submit a video and for them to actually use my video and critique it for their viewers and their listeners. This is good. This is what she can improve on. And then I also submitted a video of a swimmer that I coach. I started coaching him in 2023, and he couldn't swim at all. So I submitted his initial video, and he recently joined the local swim workouts at Tower 26 based out of California, and he's improved so much. So I wanted them to critique him to see, look at this amazing transformation that he's achieved in roughly a year and a half. And so he was on it as well. So that was really
that's cool. Fun. So do you have a link to the YouTube in your Facebook group?
No, I should post. I haven't.
Oh my gosh, it just
happened yesterday. So I was thinking, I think I'm going to do a little video of the portion that they critiqued me, and I was going to for surely post it on Instagram, but I'll definitely post the entire podcast video. They do it on the podcast, but then they do their podcast on YouTube. I'll post the YouTube on my Facebook group.
Yeah, that would be exciting and interesting.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw myself swim, it was at Epic, and at Masters, they had somebody there, I think for the kids for fast, but they were there during Masters. So they're like, if anybody wants to get their, they did an underwater and an overwater video. And I had never watched myself swim, but I imagined in my head what I looked like.
Right.
And it was, I was like, that's not me. Like, my head was way up higher than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I thought I was like perfect head position. And like the water was right here. I was like, what? Why is my head up so high? I always thought my left elbow dropped when I swam, but it was really my right elbow. So it's really interesting to see if any of you guys have never seen yourself, even if you're not getting critiqued, even if you're not getting any swim drills from it, it's so interesting just to see yourself and see how you look compared to what you think you look like.
Well, one time it was in Kona, the Kona Ironman, and I got in one of the big tubs and I got video and I had forgotten about it. I think it was from 2003. And when we were getting ready to move in 2016, it was a VHS. And I'm like, what's this VHS? And I still had a machine to put it in. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like it took me a few seconds to realize, that's me swimming.
Right.
Because I either never had watched it or it had been so long. And I'm like, oh yeah, I did this swim thing in Kona that I'd totally forgotten about. And it was just like a whoa, I didn't remember what I looked like. Right. And then in 2008, Dawn recorded videos of me in a pool so I could share videos of me demonstrating drills with the athletes I coached. And so by that time I already knew what I looked like. It was fine, but it was just really, it's really interesting. Back when I was a kid, youth swimming, my coaches would put mirrors on the bottom of the pool. Yeah. And we'd come up and down the mirrors. And I was always like, oh, I don't want to watch myself swim. But I'm like, wow, what a valuable tool I wish I had access to as a coach, to be able to be on deck watching down and seeing my swimmers swim over a mirror and seeing what they look like underwater.
Yeah. So based on that analysis that you just had on that podcast, are you going to work on any specific drills?
No, because one big thing is my elbow, like I consider myself that I have a high elbow. I just have a very deep pull, but my elbow's high, meaning my elbow is above
your hand,
above my fingertips.
Yeah.
But what I do, and I knew this wasn't what everyone agrees on, I tend to have what I call a hand flick when I pull. I feel like that hand flick, just by demonstrating, engages my lats. Now, when they were picking my stroke apart, they said, no, absolutely not. They
want it to all go as a unit.
Right. And I've tried that. Before, probably because I heard him saying that, talk about 5 years ago. I tried it before, right. And it just doesn't feel like I'm getting any power behind my pull when I keep my wrists straight like that. And they had also said with my deep pull, with my lack of elbow, and I teach the elbow, I teach this to adults and kids, but they say I'm, what's called petting the kitty. And when I thought they were meaning petting the kitty, you would do this. I definitely don't do this. I just have a really deep pull. And they thought I was going to be sore in my shoulders and not use my lats. And I'm like, no, I'm totally a lat swimmer. I never feel my shoulders. So it was interesting, their perspective and their analysis, which I don't disagree with any of it. But, I'm a 55, they even mentioned it. She's a 55-minute Ironman swimmer, 0.4 mile swimmer. And they expressed one of the main reasons is because I have really good tautness and streamline. I'm so on top of the water. My heels, my hips, my head are on top of the water. I'm very, very straight streamline. And they kind of talked about how important that is. I have no body drag. But it was just interesting. Again, the interesting part to me was they thought I was using my shoulders and not my lats. And I was like, no, because of my hand flick that they don't like.
That's what engages your lats.
That's where I feel it just by demonstrating. I feel that. So I shared that with them. And again, everyone is going to vary in what they need to work on. And again, I'm not really swimming. I'm not training for any swimming events. And I've been doing this, competitive since I've been 4 years old, and I'm almost 52 years old. Sometimes you can't. Why try to teach a dog new tricks?
Right. Well, it's like you said, you're a 55-minute Ironman swimmer. If you were a hour and 50-minute Ironman swimmer and you're trying to get more under the cutoff or trying to improve your overall time, then you would need to make these changes that they're talking about.
Right. And you know what, even though I'm not training in the pool and I'm not swimming more than, 15 minutes at a time, I could probably still pull off an hour 2.4 mile swim if I wanted to. Again, it's just my stroke is strong because of all the years that I've been swimming.
Right.
Whether, again, whether it was correct or not, and whoever's critiquing me, I'm strong with the style I have. So I'm going to keep it.
Right. Well, and if you watch an Olympic event and all 8 swimmers in the finals, if you were to slow-mo, put them on the whiteboard, angle it out, they would all be swimming slightly different.
Yes.
So their strokes are going to vary, but they work for their body and their mechanics and their flexibility and their strengths. And so I agree. If you're somebody who is wanting to improve or needing to improve a time, you're going to make those changes. But if your body has adapted to the way you swim, we've both seen runners with you're watching their gait or their stride or the way they run. And you're like, you're going to hurt yourself. And they're running 2.5-hour marathons like it's nothing. And you're like, that it's interesting. So the fact that you've adapted to the way you swim and you've made it fast and made it work for you is plenty.
Right. And I watch myself run, and I've worked on this. I'm a very quick cadence, but all the things that I tell athletes to do when I'm doing a run video analysis, I try to incorporate myself, like more of a knee drive heel lift. But I've been running for so long. I've developed the speed I have based on the mechanics that I have. And to your point, like a couple weeks ago when I ran a 5K, people in front of me, I'm like, I can't let that person beat me. They look like crap when they run. but they're faster than me, and they're going to beat me because they're strong at their style and gait and cadence that they have probably been doing for 40 years like I have.
Right. I'm like you. I run a really fast cadence. I call it kind of a shuffle. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because I do the stroke and stride every year. And a couple of years ago, a guy that's been doing stroke and stride for years with me, he introduced me to one of his friends, and he was like, this is Kirsten. She's a coach, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, she's deceptively fast. Mm-hmm. And it made me laugh because it's the same way. Like, I've made this small little fast cadence shuffle along. My stroke and stride 5Ks are between 21 and 22 minutes. Mm-hmm. So for my age group, that's always in the top of my age group.
Right.
And so it's funny because if somebody watched me without timing me, it looks like I'm just shuffling along, but I've made it into a fast run.
Yeah.
So, well, that's cool. My wellness win of the week, I actually had quite a few. So that was kind of exciting because since last week, I kind of struggled with it. And so I didn't know which one I was going to share until you said it made you feel good. It made you feel happy. So I was thinking not necessarily what I felt like was the most successful thing, but something that made me feel really good because wellness is all about feeling good. Yes, last night, one of the girls I coach in one of the groups, it's the gold group, so it's our highest group that we have. I told her what the workout was, and she said, wow, you always come up with really creative workouts. Mm-hmm. And she is 14 or 15. And it made me feel really good because it's going to help these kids stay excited about swimming, do something different, help them in a way that's different from maybe their normal practice. And a lot of my numerology and astrology and gene keys and a lot of my things I kind of follow about myself talks about creativity a lot. Mm-hmm. And I'm always like, I'm not creative. I don't do any artsy things. I don't sing or dance, or I'm not an artist. And that's what I think of as creative. But I'm always trying to come up with really interesting workouts for my swimmers, for my people I train, personal training, for my classes. And I get a lot of compliments about how different that workout was, or how exciting or different or creative. So it just reminded me that I am creative in just different areas of my life. So that felt really good to hear. And like I said, it's helping our kids stay excited about swimming.
Yeah. And on that note, I tell people all the time, I'm not creative until I'm creating a training plan or a workout. I'm very creative with, like you are, the swim workouts with the kids, the training workouts with my online athletes that I coach. And so that's a highlight. I think that's something that separates me from other coaches is I can add a lot of variety and change the workout structure to still get the same intention of the workout. So again, if it's a zone, if I want the threshold zone 4 intensity, I can create a workout, not just 4 by 5 minutes with 1 minute recovery between each. You know what I mean? I can create a lot of different ways to get that same impact, same adaptation. And one of my athletes from Turkey told me in his little review of me, I asked him to do a little review, and one reason he liked me as a coach was the creativity of workouts. So I get what you mean.
Yeah, it feels good. So completely switching gears, we are doing our podcast today because it is right around Valentine's Day on relationships. And we chose it not only because it's Valentine's Day, but because relationships are an important part of overall wellness. So there's been tons and tons of research. You can easily find research saying that having positive relationships in your life, that could be parent, child, brother, sister, best friend, soulmate, significant other, husband, wife, any sort of relationships in your life. If you have positive relationships and good connection with other humans, and I want to add animals because I was thinking about this a lot today, how my connection with my dogs have a huge impact on my mental well-being. So I'm adding dogs to the mix. Any animals, people who are animal owners, you guys you're not even like, what does she mean, dogs? You guys all know how much benefit it has on our overall mental well-being. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the impact it's had on our lives, and also give you guys some tips on how you can create more meaningful relationships in your life very easily and very simply, and how it kind of it ties into pretty much what we talk about every time, like treating your relationship like you would your nutrition or your training plan, or, all these other areas that we're working on in our life. Giving attention to your relationship in the way you give attention to your other goals and other important things in your life. And I want to end with, before I'm going to turn this over to Wendy for a little bit, I want to end with one of my favorite quotes. And it is, the grass isn't greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it. So to me, that's saying, don't look around in other places for what you're looking for, whether it's in any of these areas of your life, but especially in a relationship. If the grass is greener where you water it, where you put your attention and your energy and your love and your affection and your time and your effort is what is going to flourish in any area of your life.
Absolutely.
So talk a little bit about your experience with your relationships with all those around you and how it's benefited you in your life.
Right. So again, the first thing I think about, because it's Valentine's time frame and we're in February, I think of the relationship first and foremost with my husband, anyone's significant other, spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever that may be. And there's more to, your daily relationships than just with your significant others. Like, I develop relationships with all the swimmers I've coached. Back in Colorado, I was a high school swim coach. I was a USA swim coach. I coach various levels of swimming. And the more you coach the kids, the more I think I get closer and develop certain relationships, different relationships with every swimmer because they have different personalities. But every time I think about okay, I think I'm done with coaching you swimming. I think about the relationships I
Mhm.
build and I'm like, no, I don't want to. I really look forward to seeing these kids. I look forward to them competing because how they perform is a reflection on my coaching. And that, again, that brings me overall joy to my life, is to say, okay, I've been at this long enough. I'm not ready to give in. Maybe the first year I started coaching here in Georgia, I'm like, oh, this is too much for me. I don't want to do it anymore. But,
Right.
over time you develop those relationships. And then there's also the relationships you have with your coworkers. And I think and when I think of that aspect of a relationship with coworkers, I think of negative stress. I think of anxiety, because where I used to work back in Colorado, I didn't realize it until I left. It was very toxic. The whole coworker dynamic with some of them was very toxic, and it really produced a lot of stress and anxiety with me. And at the time, I was kind of young. I was a new manager at a health club, and
Mhm.
I just, for some reason, I associate more of the toxic relationship environments in a place of work. And I think
Right.
that just has to do with how happy or not you are I believe, with the job that you have. Because my work
Right.
environment right now is with kids, and I totally am happy with it. My work environment before, not I'm my primary job is at home, but I have these part-time jobs, is with individuals that we just clashed with. We clashed with my boss in a big way. He was more into drinking, I was more into exercise. So, how you relate to people is going to determine, what type of relationship that you're forming with them. But going kind of back to what you already said in the beginning, I was looking at some studies to provide. We can link them to the show notes, but just all the studies that have been studied on relationships and how they reduce stress, they reduce cortisol levels, they improve your immune function, increase your lifespan, better emotional well-being and life satisfaction. And again, it all ties into like stress management. What your relationships are like, it has to do with your levels of stress in your life more than
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. One thing that made me think of is when I talk to people who are saying like, "Oh, I have a toxic relationship with this person," or an uneven relationship, meaning maybe you give more than you receive, or anything that's kind of negative.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so in reverse of what you just said is any negative or toxic relationship is going to have a poor effect on your overall well-being.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, right off the bat, and I know some people might push back on this, but I believe that if you have those people in your life, you have the choice to limit the time and energy that you give to that person. And people are like, "Oh, but it's my mom or my sister or my boss." I still feel like you can find ways to, even if it's just protecting yourself with an invisible shield. I don't know. So you're not taking in all their stuff. Or, don't, if you don't have to answer the phone every time that person calls, you can be like, "Hey, I can call you later today." And by then it might be a non issue. But that's definitely would be like my first tip in just keeping yourself healthy mentally, is limit the time and energy that you have with relationships that aren't serving you.
Right. It's a control thing, and again, I think of what we talked about, was it last week, about the social media cleanse.
Mhm.
I think, at least for myself, in the political arena, the last 8 to 12 years, the social media has pointed out certain traits in people that I didn't know existed. And
Right.
so part of the reason I like to now limit my time in social media is I don't have to see that. I've never engaged in it, but it riles me up sometimes. It makes me feel a certain emotion sometimes, to see someone and to see their views and to see how passionately they're posting it, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, I still want to be friends with you, I can't be friends with you when I see what you post on social media. So I'm just
Right.
going to limit. I'm taking the control. I'm in control of that. I'm limiting that part of the toxicity that I don't want, because there is still some good in them that I want
Right.
to believe and trust, and eventually, enjoy that part about them and the reason we became friends.
Right. And it's great on social media. I'd have to look at all the platforms, but I know the platforms I'm on, you can limit the amount you see a certain person. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can even turn off what you see of theirs without unfriending them. Like you can block what you see from somebody coming in, and then if it's a friend of yours that you still want to have some contact with, you can check in on them still and check into what they're doing, but not have it pop up on your feed.
Right.
So that would be that. Again, that's a way that you can take control over your wellness that has to do with relationships and other people.
Well, one thing I found interesting, a study from the Harvard Study of Adult Development that's been going on for 85 years, they found that loneliness is as harmful as smoking. Social isolation is linked to earlier mortality rates similar to smoking or obesity. I know we didn't really talk about loneliness, but part of being social and developing relationships, the opposite of that is being by yourself, being lonely, being isolated, and
Right.
not developing or not giving any energy into social interaction, and not, maybe not knowing, but falling into a state of loneliness / depression because you're choosing not to engage, even though you think that's what you want to do. Over time, studies are showing that that's not the healthiest thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I would 100% agree. And I've listened to so many podcasts and so many books over the years that talk about the value, both mentally, physically, emotionally, everything, the value of connections, of
Mm-hmm.
having meaningful connections with people. And so if that is, people in your everyday life, that's great. If it's people that you only have, like, so for example, this podcast, I go to therapy every week, and my therapy is on Thursday, and we record this podcast on a Thursday. And so we record the podcast, I eat lunch, I go to therapy. Even if the last few days I have been a total shit show, which they kind of have, and I didn't get anything done, I wasn't productive, I'm exhausted, and I'm like, okay, these are all things I can talk to my therapist about. But then I get there and I'm like in such a good mood, because what I've been doing is, on the way to therapy, I'm listening to our podcast that we just recorded, just to make sure there's no, like, we don't edit anything, as you guys can probably tell. we keep everything in. But I want to just hear, like, make sure the sound is okay. Make sure there was a couple at the beginning where there's so many technical things. I left them in, but when I listen to them, I'm like, but the fact that I get to connect with Wendy in this way every single week, and then I'm listening to it on the way to therapy, I literally get there and she's like, how are things going? I'm like, oh my gosh, today's so awesome. I got to hang out with Wendy and do our podcast. And just that little act of, I haven't seen Wendy since I was pregnant, because didn't we do water running? No, Cora was a baby.
When we
When
did,
was the
yeah,
last time you came?
because she was in the stroller.
She was in the stroller and she fell asleep. And so they wouldn't take her in kid care, because you have to wake her up. I'm like, I'm not waking up a sleeping baby. So Wendy and I took her outside, put her under a tent,
Yeah.
covered her up so she was in the shade. Wendy and I water ran, and every like 15 or 20 minutes I would hop up, check, she's still asleep. And
Yeah.
we did water running for a couple hours.
Right, because the last time I was in Colorado, you were out of town.
Oh yeah. And didn't you stay in my apartment?
I stayed in your apartment for half the time, yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't seen Wendy since Cora was a baby, so 6 years. But I feel super connected to her as a human. And so the fact that we get to do this now, it helps my well-being a lot. So it doesn't have to necessarily be somebody you see every day. It could be just somebody who you think about or text every now and then, or see each other every once in a while, or see them pop up on social media. That's one thing I love about social media is my friends and family are kind of spread around, and it's like I get joy in when they pop up and I see what they're doing.
I think about my life in Colorado like every day. And I've lived here for 9 years. And so when I'm thinking about someone, I'm like, oh gosh, I haven't talked to this person or seen this person in a long time. Again, it's easy to go on Facebook and see what they're doing, see if they're still active on Facebook. Unfortunately, sometimes you see some poor or some sad things on Facebook that you didn't know had happened, like maybe someone passed away or you didn't know about. That's kind of sad. But it's good, again, that reminds me when I see someone who recently passed away that I didn't know about and I find out on social media, it makes me check in on everyone. Like, oh my God, I hope so-and-so's doing okay. And it makes me, keep the fire burning with the relationships I do have.
Right. So what are since you're married, how long have you and Dawn been married?
Since 2005, 20 years. It'll be 20 years this year.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
So based on your relationships and your current relationship, what are 3 simple things that you feel like you do or he does, you guys do together, that has helped you sustain a 20-year marriage?
Communication is huge. If something's bothering you, let the person know. And hopefully, likewise, if something's bothering that person, they're going to let me know. You just don't want to hold a grudge. You don't want to, it's not easy. And again, especially like the marriage, I mean, it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. But I think the more you communicate with someone, whether it's a spouse or a friend or a coworker, the better relationship you're going to have with that person. So communication is a big deal. We have differences in the way we eat. He's a meat eater. I'm not. And it's just me. And I cook his meat on the grill, and he loves the way I grill his stuff. And even though I don't eat meat, I'm going to do something for him because I love him and he's my husband. So, it's just it's the communication of, if he tells me he enjoys how I grill it, that makes me feel good that I'm doing it the right way, and he's going to eat it and he's going to be happy. If he didn't compliment me on the way I did it, I wouldn't want to do it anymore because I don't like to cook. Grilling is pretty easy, but I don't like to cook. But if I do something that's working for you, let me know, and chances are higher I'm going to keep doing it. So I think communication's the biggest thing. At work, I asked for a raise at where I work when I coach the kids. When I'm talking about work, I asked for a raise, and I was very confident and knew exactly, I prepared. I knew exactly what I was going to say with my boss. And I happen to like this boss that I have. So it's kind of easy to ask for a raise. But in the past, when I used to work in Fort Collins, I wouldn't have never done it. I wouldn't have never had the confidence or the guts to do it because we had such, I thought, a terrible relationship, because my boss was, until I left, that he told me he appreciated me. I had to quit and move for the first time for him to say he appreciated me. I wish he would have spoke up sooner. It would have changed my mind about that toxic environment.
Right. But that's not, it probably taught you a lot more about what you're looking for, about setting boundaries, and about what you need for your mental well-being.
Yeah, definitely. And, I just want to mention something from an athletic standpoint. I don't train like I used to when I trained for Ironman, but for those athletes out there who are training for big endurance events, it's so important to let your kids, significant others, anyone who's on that journey with you and who's trying to support you with your training and your needs as an athlete, you need to thank them and you need to let them know what your needs as an athlete are. So if you're needing to put in a big training day, hopefully, they already know that this is part of the journey that you're on. Let them know. Just remind them to say, oh yeah, by the way, I'm going to be gone from 4 a.m. to noon on the weekend. And the chances of them continually to support you is going to be higher than if you don't communicate what your needs are as an athlete.
Right. And along with that, even maybe doing some like negotiating, say, hey, I'm going to be gone from 4 a.m. to noon, and then I'm going to need to take a nap. But then when I get up from my nap, I'll do whatever you want to do that night.
Right.
So I was married for 21 years. And I remember when I trained for my first Ironman, first of all, I had never met anyone who had done an Ironman before I did my first Ironman. So I didn't know what to expect. I followed a plan that was in a book. I bought a book and I just followed that plan. And I luckily, thankfully, had my spouse on board. He was like, whatever you need to do. And so that's what I initially did. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do this like 6-hour bike ride and then a 2-hour run, and then I'm going to eat and shower, and then we can hang out. And then afterwards, I would be so tired. We'd be like watching a movie. I'd be falling asleep on the couch. So even though my intentions were good, I didn't always make true to it, but you learn. Then you can say, okay, I'm going to take a 2-hour nap and then we can hang out.
Yeah, and normally in most, good relationships, it's a supportive relationship. You support each other, but sometimes you have to negotiate and say, okay, we have other priority going on in the morning. So instead of being gone from 4 to noon, I'm going to be gone from 2 to 6, or, you negotiate your training so you can be supportive of others around you because they are more likely to support you. I've coached athletes who have relationships have ended due to training. So that's why I wanted to just bring that up, because I know a lot of our listeners are probably athletic, and it's just important to just remind them. Right.
Well, and it's along with that, because I train a lot of athletes in relationships as well. And so one of the ways, and I've talked about this before, one of the ways I do training plans is I don't mind if people split workouts because to fit around their life. Right. I would rather have somebody, if they need to do a 6-hour bike ride, if they did 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the evening, to me, that's more beneficial in the long term than ending your relationship because that wasn't something that you guys agreed that would be going on during your training. Right. So most of my athletes, I say, okay, here's your workouts, get them done however you can. If you have to split workouts, because I've had to do that too. I mean, I remember when I had my baby, I was training for an Ironman. Well, not right away, but like 6 weeks after, when I was allowed to start training, and I would get in a long run. It would take me like 9 hours to get in like a 3-hour run because I would be like, I would do it throughout the day. And when I got to my Ironman, I finished my Ironman. So it's okay to do that. And it's better to work your training around your life than to try to work your life around your training.
Yep.
Yeah, that's huge.
Definitely for longevity in the sport.
Longevity in the sport and longevity in your
relationships. Yep.
So one thing that I think is so important because again, I was married 21 years and nothing happened. Like, we're still really good friends. He's an amazing guy. We got married really young and then we grew apart, and it's really interesting because I said to him, I'm like, I feel like I need something else in my life. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I had no idea why I was ready to split up from him. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, like you, it's up and down. Our whole relationship was up and down. But in the end, I was like, I just feel like there's something else for me. And he was like, did you meet someone? Is there someone else? I'm like, no, not at all. I just felt something pulling me out of the relationship. And then I ended up having my daughter like a year later. So, do the math. It was pretty interesting, but something was pulling me away from the relationship because my husband and I didn't want kids. Like, I had no desire to have a child. And then after I got divorced, I got pregnant with Cora's dad, and I didn't think anything of it until later, after I was more like with it, like past postpartum depression, and I could actually like think of things. I'm like, you know what? I would have never chosen to have a child. And the fact that she's in my life is one of the most meaningful things in my entire life. And I wouldn't have ever had that if I hadn't have left my marriage. So
Yeah,
something was pulling me out of it, but I didn't know what it was at the time. But it's really obvious to me now. It was because I was supposed to have a child.
Yeah.
So I don't even know why I told that story, but what I was going to say is what helped me a lot in my relationship was we both had our own things going on, but we found some common goals. So like he was a musician. He was in bands that played out in bars and clubs till like 4 a.m. I was an athlete. I was getting up at 4 a.m. to go do races. So we had like very opposite hobbies, but then we would come together for some common goals like getting out of debt or saving for a trip. Or, you know, we had some things that we worked on together, but we also had plenty that we worked on apart. Mm-hmm. And I feel like for us, that balance really helped us thrive and grow in our relationship and stay together longer. Because one of the things we actually talked about getting a divorce in 2012 and ended up instead selling half our stuff and buying an RV and traveling around together in an RV for 3 years. And it was amazing. Like people were like, is that why you got divorced? Because you were living in an RV together for 3 years? And I'm like, no, actually that helped us stay together longer. It wasn't until we sold the RV, moved back into our house, and life kind of started getting back to where it was before that there was, you know, some emptiness and some other things that we needed to work on. But living, like having that goal of selling everything, renting out our house, buying an RV, fixing it up, moving into the RV and traveling around was amazing for us.
Yeah, I love that.
So what else can you think of that might be helpful for people who are maybe struggling in their relationships?
I don't think there's anything wrong with counseling. You know, again, we're talking about more of the intimate relationships. Again, that's just another form of communication. You're able to communicate with an impartial person who is outside looking in, and often that's helpful. I have nothing wrong with the therapy side of trying to better your relationship. You know, yeah. I think that's really beneficial. Again, this is someone who was going to be a counselor. That's something I wanted to do, is be that type of counselor.
Right. Yeah. I've been to therapy in several of my relationships in the past. And when you're emotionally attached to an issue that you have, an issue that is in your relationship was started from the human who you are and your partner is. It's so good to have somebody non-attached look from the outside and kind of ask you some questions, like to just make you see that it's not working, mm-hmm. or what you can do to help it work. One of the best things that I had that I got from therapy was, have you ever done the love languages?
No.
Okay. So if you are like, gosh, me and my partner just can't figure out how to, like, you know, we're butting heads, or we, you know, maybe having some issues. Love languages it's a book. It's also, you can go online and take a test, and it tells you what your love language is, which basically means how you feel love. So some of the options are words of affirmation. So like if you need someone to tell you, I love you, and if that's what makes you believe their love. Physical touch. Some people need that physical connection to feel loved. Acts of service. You need to do something for me in order for me to know you love me. Gifts. Gifts is a big one. And time. Quality time is the fifth one. So those are ways that each of us, and most of us have like need a little bit of all of that, but most of us have one way that we feel love. If your partner doesn't know that that's your way, then they're probably going to show up in the way that they need to feel loved. So for example, if my partner needs physical touch, but I need acts of service, and so I'm doing all this stuff for him because that's how I receive love. Yeah. So I'm doing so many things and he needs me to touch him. Mm-hmm. So there's a disconnect with how we're presenting our love to our partner. And they also have books, how you parent and child love languages. Cool. So it's the same thing. It's the same thing with your best friend. If you need your friend to tell you how amazing you are, and so you're constantly telling your friend like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. And they're not telling you back because they don't need to hear that. Maybe they like buying you gifts. Then there's going to be a disconnect. And so you don't realize how much the other person loves you because they're not showing it in the way that you would show it.
Absolutely.
So it's really valuable.
Yeah. And again, that's part of the communication.
Yeah. But if you don't know, like if you're like right. Knowing that so my love language is acts of service. When people do things for me, that's how I can tell people love me. So somebody could sit there and tell me 1,000 times how amazing I am, how beautiful I am, how talented I am, how smart I am. Of course, everyone likes to hear that, right? I'm like, thank you. But for someone to show me how much they love me, they need to do something for me. And if somebody didn't know that and they're constantly hugging me, kissing me, buying me gifts, telling me how amazing I am. And I'm like, why isn't this person doing anything for me? Don't they like me?
Yeah.
So
I think for me, it's just support me. And what I say when I say I want to do something, just really be happy that I'm going to do it and allow me to do it. Support my independence.
You know what? That's funny because my 3 things that I had were support, independence, and communication.
Yeah.
Like those 3, if I say, like you said, if I'm like, because after I did my first Ironman, my husband was like, because I wanted to just see if I could do it. I was just going to do one Ironman. That was in 2001. So when I was done, my husband was like, woohoo, good job. You did it. I'm so proud of you. We're done, right? And I was like, no. Now I want to see if I could go faster. Now I want to see if I can qualify for Kona. Now I want to see if I can blah, blah, blah. And he was just like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
But he still supported it. So anything else you wanted to add about just ways that people can kind of look at their relationships or any other tips that you can think of?
Again, we've talked about this, about the social media purge, being present, at this day and age, we have phones, we get bored. We want to look up, we want to scroll. When you're in the presence of the people you care about, whether it's your significant other, your coworkers, again, the youth swim team, kids, like, I don't want my kids to see me on my phone while I'm coaching them because I'm not paying attention to them. I'm not coaching them. Even though sometimes I do take a peek, sometimes I look something up, sometimes I'll look up a drill, sometimes I'll actually look stuff up that I want to use to coach them because I see something going on and I want to just a change of, okay, I got to look something up really quickly. But kids need your attention. Even though they won't give you their attention, they need your attention to know that you care for them. So just being really present and intentional. If you're in again, going back to the spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend relationship type, and you guys are both on different schedules, Dawn comes home, then I leave to coach the kids. We rarely see each other except on the weekends. And I do less training on the weekends so I can be more present for him and we can do things together on the weekends because that's when our schedule allows us to do stuff. But just being very intentional, set those date nights. If you haven't spent some time with your significant other in a while, take the time to say, hey, let's go do something. Let's schedule it and don't let anything get in the way. If you let something get in the way, then you're telling your significant other that this date night wasn't a priority.
Yeah. Yeah, I do the same thing with my daughter. So I have joint custody with her dad. We split 50-50 nights. And I always have her Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday nights. Always. I don't work those nights ever. Like I just don't work Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday nights. So when I pick her up from school, we do a couple activities or we just hang out or whatever. Then he has her Wednesday and Thursday night always. So Wednesday night is the night that I work at the swim school. I work a long night coaching. And then Thursday is when I just like shove a bunch of stuff in. So because I don't have her. And then on the weekends I don't have her is when I do my long training. So I only do my long training every other weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And then the weekends I have her, I usually have to work 1 or 2 hours a day. But then all the rest of the time is spending with her. And we take turns doing, like, I don't just do everything she wants to do because that's not an even relationship, even though I'm the mother and she's the daughter. I say like, okay, what are 3 things you want to do today? Here are 3 things I want to do. And we try to do them all.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing with other relationships, friendships too. It's like, so this is a good tip for friends. And I just started doing this with my mom. I talked about this before where the 4th Thursday of every month, my mom and I have date night. We just started that this year. One of my goals for 2025 was to spend more time with my mom. So we, beginning of the year, opened our calendars and said, mark it in, 4th Thursday of every month, spending with my mom. Again, unless something crazy happened, I'm not going to cancel it. I also have a friend that I talk with once a month and we schedule that. And we usually talk for 2 hours. So I schedule it every month. Mm-hmm. So that, because most of us these days, if you say, oh, let's just find a time to get together when we're both less busy.
It's not going to happen.
Ever. So you have to plan it like this. Like Wendy and I, we put this on our calendar when we first decided to do a podcast. We're like, every week at this time, we're getting on and we're recording this podcast.
Else it wouldn't get done because we're as busy as we want to be. You know, some people think I'm so busy and I just tell them I'm as busy as I make my schedule. And so are you. Granted, I don't have the 8 to 5 job, so I do have more control of that. But I'm as busy as I
choose to be
with the things that I choose to do. And then I still have some schedule in my day that that has to happen whether I want it to or not. But we're all busy in our own way.
Yeah. The one thing the other last thing I wanted to say about relationships that I think is really, really important that I've learned over the last few years, but also see a lot of people doing this that I don't really think is helpful is I feel like you can't expect one person to be everything you need in your life. So that's why we have lots of different relationships. Like, I don't feel like there's one person in each of our worlds that is going to give us every single thing we need in our life. And I wouldn't want the pressure of being somebody's everything. So, and I would never expect one single person to be my everything. So I currently do not have any significant other. But if and when I ever do, if they don't want to work out with me, I'm okay because I work out with my friend Kat or I work out with my friend Ashley. If they don't want to discuss wellness with me, that's okay. I do that every week with Wendy. So I don't think it's realistic to expect that one person is going to fulfill all your needs and complete you in every area of your life. And I feel like the people who do expect that are going to be disappointed.
Right. I agree with you.
So, all right. With that being said, any final thoughts before we go to a couple listener questions?
No, I think we kind of covered a lot of good information.
Yeah. If you guys want us to talk about anything else in depth, let us know. because obviously you can tell this is our, ninth podcast, and we have no problems talking. Do you have a listener question, or do you want me to go?
You go first.
Okay. So I had somebody message me and say, I see that you're always at the pool, which I haven't been a lot lately because I'm in the process of this like a million part tattoo. So I haven't been swimming hardly at all, but I usually do swim a lot. And she said, how do you keep from getting bored? And Wendy and I kind of do the same thing. We use a lot of equipment. So if you open my backpack of swim equipment, I have fins. I actually have two kinds of fins. I have long fins, short fins. I have paddles, like regular hand paddles. I also have bolster paddles that, oh, Wendy, you should use the bolster paddles to keep your wrists straight. I have bolster paddles. I have a band. I have tennis balls. I have a snorkel. I have a buoy. And I have a stick. I have a lot of equipment. So even if I just used each piece of equipment for 5 minutes, that would be an hour-long workout without being bored. So that's, first of all, equipment helps me. Second of all, swimming is pretty much my meditation and my quiet time. So I would never be bored anyway. Most of the time I stop swimming because I'm out of time. Every once in a while, I'm not as motivated, and I'll maybe get in and do like a 500 and be like, oh, I'm done. I'm not into this anymore. But most of the time I just enjoy being in the water and the silence and the calm and peace and serenity of being in the water. And then third is if you go online, and Wendy probably has 1,000 swim workouts in her repertoire of swim workouts. I have thousands of swim workouts. If you go online, there are so many different workouts out there that you could actually pick a different workout every day for the rest of your life. Probably there's enough variety. But if you're a triathlete and you're like, all you're doing is swimming freestyle with no equipment, I would be really bored doing that too. Learn some other strokes, work out with a friend, and do whatever they're doing just to shake things up a little bit. And then get some new equipment and have fun. What do you want to add to that?
On that note, I actually have a program called Swimming Made Easy with over 101 swim workouts. It's kind of like a workout in a binder. And I call them recipes, like 10 technique recipes, 10 endurance recipes, 10 tempo, 10 threshold, 10 kick recipes, pull recipes, mixed bag. So it's actually 101 swim workouts in a binder. I used to sell it as a PDF, and then I kind of put it on Training Peaks because I provided a 16-week training plan, swim only plan, utilizing these 101 workouts. And I encourage athletes to take a look at the 101 workouts and supplement. If they're following a training plan anywhere, they could supplement these workouts, because I talk about, the goal, the purpose of each workout. And it's kind of fun. I created it. Gosh, it's probably like 8 years ago, I think in 2016. So it's interesting that you said our workout libraries are endless.
Yeah,
we're
are.
Creative.
Really
we're creative
are.
with our workouts.
Yeah.
And I had a question and I can't find where I put it. So I'm going to pass on my athlete question this week.
Okay. You could do it next week.
Yeah.
What are you, to close out, are you doing anything for Valentine's Day?
It just depends if I think Don might be on call. And so it just depends. He works on Valentine's Day. I mean, we all work, but I work from home and he's working at the hospital. So it just depends on if he can do something, because when he's on call, he prefers just to stay home. He doesn't want to go far away or anything, but maybe just the dinner thing, nothing special. I on holidays like that, it's kind of just another day, but
right.
we acknowledge it. And then we see if our schedules align that we can do something, a little bit more untraditional. Just because it's Valentine's Day, we'll make more of a point to make sure, maybe we can go out to dinner, or we'll cook dinner from home, but we'll do it together.
Right. Yeah, I have Cora on Valentine's Day. So I was going to ask her what she wants to do. We've already given each other some Valentine's presents, but I'm asking her what she wants to do. And maybe we like watching a movie and making a bunch of popcorn. So that will be Cora's my significant other. So that will be with my significant other. But tonight, pre-Valentine's Day, I am spending with myself because I'm my favorite Valentine. And I ordered, it should be delivered here any minute. I order my groceries. I bought these, the Morning Star ribs. They're like riblets. And then I have these like hoagies, and I'm going to make barbecue sandwiches and cheese fries.
Nice.
And sit at home by myself and enjoy. Well, I'm getting my tattoo worked on tonight too, because I don't have to work until tomorrow. So I'm getting my tattoo worked on. When I get home, I'm going to play games on my phone and eat this amazing meal to celebrate my love for myself.
That sounds awesome. And you just reminded me, I usually get the swimmers I coach on holidays. I get them, I'll stop by Publix and get them something pink and red, something that they're going to be selling in the Publix bakery. And I'll get my swimmers something. And then we usually have like a non-traditional
Workout
game. So what I do is I created it's called a swim grid, and I bring 2 coins and I form 2 teams, and they flip the coin. If they get heads, they move 2 spaces on the grid. If they get tails, they move 1. And so part of the grid is, maybe a 500, maybe it's a 50 dolphin dives, maybe it's a 50 aqua jog, or Spider-Man or Sea Slug. We have all these different things that we've accumulated, all these fun things to do. Sometimes it's go outside and jump in the cold water. And so whatever they land on, that's what they have to do. And so I kind of get really creative and think about some stuff that we haven't done in a while. Surf on a kickboard. So they're standing on a kickboard and making their way across the pool. It's almost like a relay day.
Yeah.
And that takes up actually plenty of time. So they end up getting a significant amount of swimming done, but they don't realize it.
Yes. I love that. I love those games.
Yeah.
Because I did that on around the Christmas holiday. I took Uno cards, and each color, red, yellow, green, blue, was a different stroke. Fly back, rest free. And then the number, I wrote a different like exercise, like a drill, like fins, paddles, kickboard, tennis balls. Like I wrote different things for the numbers, and then each kid would go and draw one. And then I forgot, it was like different distances and stuff. So like somebody might draw like 100 breaststrokes sitting on the kickboard. Yeah. And everyone's like, yes. And then somebody would draw like 200 butterfly full stroke. And everyone's like, oh, we hate you.
Yeah. And it's fun. It's a good time.
Yeah. And they get a good workout.
If they get a good workout, and if there's time remaining, like if someone finishes the board, then they get to be the team that gets to pick. We'll just finish the night off with relays.
Yeah. Yeah. I do a couple, like the wild cards on Uno. If they draw a wild card, then they get to pick.
That sounds fun.
And it's funny because there's this one girl who's super into swimming. Well, obviously they're all into swimming, but whenever she picks a wild card, she wants to do like a real swim. But she's always afraid to be like, I want to do a 200 fly, but I don't want everyone to be mad at me. So she'll be like 200 corkscrew, because she doesn't want people to get mad at her. But she's like, I really want to swim.
200 choice. So speaking of that, like sometimes I put all my kids' names in a hat. Like I'll put it in this hat if this is what I'm wearing. And this is when we're doing relays. And sometimes I'll throw in a bunch of my own relays and I'll let them pick. And we end up always getting through all the relays, but just the fact that they get to choose what relay we do in that moment is like the best, the greatest thing in the world. Instead of me choosing, if I picked it and said it, it would be a different experience. But the fact that they get to pick and say, oh, look what relay we get to do, changes everything.
Yeah. So if you guys are still wondering, what can I do in the pools to make it more fun? Put a bunch of things in your own hat and say, okay, whatever I pick, I'm going to do 100 of. And just keep picking things and have a mix it up fun day swimming.
Exactly. I love it. Great idea.
All right. Great idea. All right. If you guys have any questions, want to hear about anything, want to learn about anything, please let us know. And we will see you guys next week.
Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's month. Happy February.
Happy February month. And
make it a great
day. All right. Bye, you guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Wellness Made Easy with Wendy and Kirsten.
If you want to learn more about us or anything we talked about today, check out the links in our show notes.
We would love to know what you think of our podcast and what you want more of. So drop us a comment, send us a message, and help us out by leaving us a rating and a review.
And don't forget to let us know your wellness win for this week.
Thanks for listening.
Make it a great day.